Alright, so I'm just going to now do a quick breakdown of the inner workings of the script. I'm not going to go into super detail. I want this video to be maybe 10 minutes long, so I'm just going to hit the cliff notes, and then hopefully you can get like an idea of how the app actually works and functions, and you can pretty much get an idea of how you can build one yourself. Okay, so first things first, before we go into the code, let's just show you how this is structured. Most of this menu is just a bunch of control nodes. It's nothing super special. They have a bunch of panels as well as buttons. So when the button is pressed, it does something. In this particular case, so this here, auto detect. When I press it, it detects all the headers and it populates the rule set. I don't think there's really much more to say than that. Here's a V scroller for all the rules. I think it's pretty obvious what each of these are doing. So I got labels here. Obviously, that's just used for labels or writing text onto the screen. There's the version number, which is also a label. Yeah, nothing too fancy. Like I said, just a bunch of control nodes to make the menu itself. Then here we have a timer. This timer is just for the run pipeline cleaning button. I didn't want people to be able to rapidly press run pipeline over and over and over again. So this is just a cooldown. Once they press it, takes 2 seconds, and then they can press it again. The header pop-up, that is just for this right here. This allows me to display any error messages or any information that I want to tell the user. That's what that's for. And yeah, and this obviously the version number, like I already went over. So here is more the meat and potatoes. This is just a bunch of nodes that I had put together for the pipeline here. All these are just components. Each one does, one or a few jobs depending on what data they are currently using or currently manipulating. For example, the GUI controls. This is just all the, this would be all the rule sets, for example. Actually, I'll show you exactly what this one is doing. So this GUI control obviously is controlling the GUI, but some of the things that you see back here, for example, rule selected, get selected validation rule, that would be pretty much like this stuff here. So like get selected rule would be the ID, and now you see it's blacked out because this is what these are doing. So that's what that's doing. Let's break this down here. Auto detect columns, obviously that just, finds the columns that it detects dependent on the headers. So here I have input to columns, has a dictionary, and has all of the rule. It has all of the validators in the menu right here. And then this list here is all the columns that are currently populating it. So for example, date-USA, let's click on that. And if I add, I can't add anything because I don't have the file in, but when I had all these columns in here, if I press 1 or 2 and they populated here, what's happening behind the scenes is it's just grabbing the number within there. So, column 1, column 5, column 13, whatever. And it's populating within this list so it can look through it. Like I said, this is just the auto detect, but it's also the rule controller as well. So just get an ID here. Auto detect, blah, 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 base dictionary structure. Just to make sure it had a default. And then just going through here and looking through the header and finding out what those words are, and then comparing them to this giant dictionary. So if it finds something that had email in it, it will look for, this is what it'll look for: phone numbers, phone, mobile cell, date of birth. There we go. That was a good one. USA, date, ISO. So one problem with the doing it this way is it will only work on the first key, but if there's a second key that can also populate it, it will just ignore. So that's why when I hit the auto detect the first time, it automatically defaulted to the USA format instead of the ISO format. That's why. These were medical specific codes and keys. So here you go, ICD-10. So if it sees any of those, instantly will populate those in the auto detect. Okay, let's see here. I want to show you exactly how the rule sets function here, because most of them run off pretty much the same basic principle. All I did was I normalized the data first. So all I did was go in there and how I would decide how I want the data to be normalized. So in the emails case, I wanted all of the letters or all the characters in it to be lowercase. That way, um, that way everything was consistent. So I just chose that rule myself instead of having everything different sizes. So there was none of .com. So we didn't have any funkiness like that. It would just have them all. Can we do lowercase? Boom. It was instantly lowercase like that. So that's that. And then after it was done normalizing the data, I would send it to the validator within the controller. So at some point, the controller would get a hold of the normalized data, and then it would run through the validation of it. So now that it's been normalized, any funkiness that happened within that data has been squared away. It can then look at it objectively and say, okay, this is a valid email, this is not a valid email. And then what I did is I just used a regular expression, and I pretty much tested it against that pattern. So I was looking for a particular pattern. Whatever the data was in that particular column and or row, depending on how I was checking things, it would compare the two, and if they came back as a matching pattern, it let it pass, and if it came back as a negative pattern, it flagged it, and then it would send it to, it would store it. So here you can see invalid emails. So any invalid emails that I had, it would kick it back, and then it would store it into a list. And you can see down over here, it says we're doing emails. Where is emails at? Email. So here, run email normalization, excuse me. So here, you can see here, email normalization, email text. Like I said, just lowercase everything, and then once it was done, it would store it, and then it would send it to the validator, which would be here, run email validator. So once it had that normalized data, and this right here, any of the invalid emails would be stored, and then it again would be sent back. So if we go to here to run this, as you can see here, and gather and store data, I have down here a dictionary. Yeah, I have a dictionary here, and this here is creating keys. So here, report data, and I created a key for it. Invalid emails, report it, and then it's grabbing the data from the run email validation. And then here, past data set is just the data that's been normalized. And then get rule set is the column that it's currently occupying. So if maybe this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, whatever those columns are, it's grabbing those and then it's storing them. And then later on, once we're done with all of this, you can see down here, report data return. So once it's done collecting all this data, it builds a dictionary with all these keys and all the information within it. And then, gather, you can see here, that stored data is getting stored again, and then it's getting passed to the write reporter. So all that data is going to get written, and then it's also going to get saved. If you remember correctly, when I was doing this earlier, there was the view, so we can view it, which is what this was doing. And then we have the show in folder, which is what this is doing. So one is writing the data so we can read it, and the other one is saving the data so we can pass it along if we need to. So here, I'm going to write reporter. You can see here, date time string, time get date time string from system. That's how we got the time and date when I showed you the report the first time. Then here, direct access, make directory recursive absolute. When you are storing files in a compiled program, you need to figure out how you're going to store it, because you can't use res and store reports within your program itself. So it will show up in here, as you can see, reports. But the problem with that is once it's compiled, you can no longer write to the program itself. So whoops. So here I use user. I believe this works on both Linux and Windows. I never tested it on Mac OS, but this allowed me to create a folder or directory called reports within the directory of wherever this app winds up being, depending on the user. And then after that, it's just going to save it to that particular directory. And then from there, it's going to write the full report once it has permission to write. So as you can see here, if write to file, if this is true, write all this stuff here. And then here it's going to call reporter. You can see here, report block 1, report block 2. This was getting long, so I just split it. That's all. It's just so it looks cleaner. But you can see here, report block 1, get reporter component, report cleaning process, total errors at the top, write report for the empty cells, write report for rows and columns, write report for invalid emails. And all this is doing is just systematically looking through the dictionary that we have, and it's just writing that data to a file. Now, this reporter data, this get reporter component is this right here, reporter. And what this reporter is doing, let's see, not messy, we'll do emails, why not? So, as you can see here, let's see, where's the emails? Report invalid emails, because that's the one we looked at. Get reporter component, write reported invalid emails from the file. So what is it doing? It's going, whoops, that's not the correct one. Going to reporter, as you can see here, write reported invalid emails. So this is the emails that were invalid in the dictionary. So here, write title. So this is going to be at the top, if you remember. You know what, here's what we're gonna do. That way we can see exactly what's happening. Okay, so if you can see here, it says here, write title file to write invalid emails, and what's it doing is right here, invalid emails. So this is the title that it's writing. As you can see here, invalid emails, and then we can see here, total invalid emails, and then it's getting the data, as you can see here, the size of it. So that's telling us how many errors it found in this particular case. And then here, store line, empty, that's just to give it a space. So you can see here we got a space here. I just want to make sure that things weren't crowded. And then finally, for entry in the current report log of invalid emails reported, write stored line, and then it's going to tell me, you know, each and every single one of those invalid entries. It's going to go through and find out what that error is, looking at the emails themselves. So right here, it's getting all this right here. So you can see here, if not valid format, so invalid emails in append, and this right here was stored inside that dictionary, and that's what it's reading from, and that's why it's popping these out, depending on, like I said, the error. So yeah, and it just does that for each and every single one. Some of them are a little bit more complex than that, but a lot of them, as you can see here, report invalid IDs, and the emails, they look almost identical. The only difference is the way the data is going to be represented, because certain things, certain rules aren't the same, so they have to be spread out differently. But yeah, that's how that works. And then finally, once everything is all done, we save the clean file path. So this again just saves where the once the report is done being written, this is just where it's going to be saved. And then it finalizes the clean CSV to disk, and then it finally writes it to the disk itself, so you can finally open it up and see what's inside. Kind of like the Wonder Ball. So show report, and there you go. So yeah, that's just a quick little breakdown of how this is. Like I said, it's far more complicated than that, but I don't want to be here for 30 hours. I'm not even joking. I could probably make 30 videos on this, going through each and every single detail. But this is just a, you know, quick little breakdown of how this app was built, how it works, what it does, and some of the reasons behind the decisions that I made. So yeah, hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully I didn't overstay my welcome. And yeah, until next time, I will see you then. Goodbye for now.